Yeah.
Haring. I got to ask you, that is are you familiar with the term alliteration? Oh,
Yeah, I am
that's a
living
very
proof.
catchy, snappy name. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm the third too, so I've got two before me.
Harry Herring the first, Harry Herring the second, and Harry Herring the third.
Yeah, well, Dad he got out of it. He was a junior, so he just went by Chip, so it made it easy. So,
Are you going by Harry?
oh yeah,
All right. I gotta ask you this too. You're, I guess, technically speaking, you'd be a Mischite.
yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah,
What
Mish Light.
a Mischite? What does it take? So I thought I knew what a Mischite was until I met you. What is a Mischite? Welcome back to the All In, All On X podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of full arch dentistry, innovation, and the people who are redefining what's possible. Here we go beyond the procedures and into the lives of people shaping full arch dentistry. This isn't just about implants or workflows. It's about the lives we build, the decisions we make under pressure, and the leaders who push this profession forward when no one's watching. Get your head straight, because we're about to go all in. Before we get into this episode of the All In, All On X pod, I want to talk to you about something that I use with all of my patients, Stella Life. Stella Life is a pre and post-op recovery system designed around something that every surgical clinician cares about, healing that actually works. Stella Life's award-winning recovery kit supports accelerated healing, non-toxic antimicrobial patient comfort, and provides a natural alternative to opioids and chlorhexidine without the staining, without the unpleasant taste, and without interfering with fibroblast activity. Stella Life is non-toxic, sugar-free, gluten-free, and is manufactured in a GMP facility in the U.S. It's a system trusted by clinicians like myself who give it away to all of my full arch cases. Trust Stella Life. Less opioids, faster healing, happier patients who know you care.
Well, I've heard I've heard that term before jokingly, but I think that Carl. So kind of background on everything. So went to dental school, met my wife, now wife, and I didn't know anything about dentistry before I went into dental school. Right.
Mhm.
My cousin was a dentist, and I saw him at a Christmas party in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he had a big smile on his face and just looked really happy. And I was, I just played baseball. That's what I did in college, and I
Nice.
thought, that's what it was going to be. And my dad was like, you got to figure out what you want to do, and if baseball doesn't work out, and I had an aptitude test that said to be an investment banker, and he was like, "You don't want to do that. I know you're not cut out for that, brother." And I'm like, "Okay," because he was a bonds broker and he knew the business, and it was, kind of rolling into, some other things about life. It's interesting, how your kids, and he kind of passed that on to me for my kids. I want to know my daughters to be able to tell them, "Hey, this if you want to do this, I know you as a person. You can, you know, you be good at this, or no, you won't be good at it." And
Mhm.
thankfully I talked to my cousin who I saw at the Christmas party like, a week later, and, he's a dentist. And, I told my dad like, "Hey, I think I might want to be a dentist." He's like, "Oh yeah, do that, man. It's really easy. You
Yeah.
just surrounded by beautiful women all day. It's great." And he's like, "Make a bunch of money." And I'm like, "I don't think that's how it is." And like, now the rolling joke is, my dad was just full of it. He had no idea what he was talking about, so
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
did, I love what I do, but he knew, me enough, to be able to say, "Go do this." But, I went to dental school, obviously didn't know anything about dentistry, and I meet, my now wife, and I didn't even know who, the Misches were, and her dad's Craig Misch, and then, his brother, yeah, there's Craig there on the right. So his older brother
Yep.
Carl, was a few years older than him, and he really, took the implant realm and turned it into he pioneered it and turned it into a clinical, relevancy, like an everyday clinical relevancy with,
Right.
the things he did for dentistry. And it was really, he really gave a lot to the profession.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
For sure. So looking at this picture, so Carl was basically Maggie's uncle, right?
Yeah, correct.
And Maggie's your wife, and then Catherine and Craig are your in-laws.
That's right.
Is that right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you couldn't have planned it any more perfect, really.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Carl, God rest his soul too, by the way. We often call him the godfather of modern implant dentistry.
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you refer to him at the Thanksgiving dinner table between him and Craig? Is that
Well, it's funny because, they're brothers, and if you have siblings, they know each other past the dentistry, so
Yeah,
it's he actually what's interesting is Carl passed well, I mean, he passed away from, a brain tumor in
right.
2000, I think, 16, and I actually never even got to meet Carl. He,
Mhm,
was pretty well into his, disease at that time,
mhm,
but, I know that his kids or nieces, they've got a whole they're all up in Michigan, so we haven't really seen a lot of them, but, I know his son Jonathan, actually, it's really cool, I think he played football yeah, he played football at Michigan State, and, he did perio at, Michigan, and now he's getting the institute back going, so
yeah.
the Phoenix coming back from the ashes, so Jonathan's putting it back on, he's doing some great stuff up there too.
You and Craig still affiliated with Misch Implant Institute?
No, just because of
Yeah,
when we came in, he was Craig had kind of paved his own way,
yeah,
um, kinda more of, Carl was a prosthodontist, and Craig, he did pros, and then he did oral surgery after that,
right,
and, but I gotta let him know the pros was only 2 years when he did it, so, I went through 3 years, so
right.
but
Yeah, yeah.
it
So
it,
you guys threw on photography in the 3rd year.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah, just photography, and, it, but Craig really, man, he's gotten I mean, he just published his textbook recently on
Yeah,
bone augmentation, and, he did work with, Resnick for a little bit, a really good prosthodontist. They got one of his co-residents, he was Gerald Resnick, I believe his name was, and they went through,
mhm.
and, actually, this is him right here, here's in the
Is he
office
here?
today. Yeah,
Hey. Hey, Craig.
yep,
How are you?
yeah. Oh, he can't hear you, got headphones on.
Oh, he
Yeah,
can't hear me? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Are you at your office are you at your work office or your home office?
I'm actually at the work office. Well, I had a few patients today that, had
Yeah,
to come in and see, so we,
yeah.
came in and did the Pros Life, did some fixed some stuff and saw
This
some new
morning?
patients. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I recognize Craig. I've seen Craig speak a few times. I mean, it's certainly, the Mish name, I mean, Carl and Craig, it's,
Probably see you guys
I
this
mean, it's at
weekend.
the
Alright,
forefront of
cool, see ya.
everybody's mind in implant dentistry. I've seen Craig speak a few times. I saw Carl speak many times. Gosh, it's not really a presentation about Carl, but I met him in 2000, like 5 or 6, my first
Oh, wow.
AAID meeting, and, I go to dinner with, like, Truman Baxter was my mentor, my partner, I'm his protege, and, I walked into this dinner table with, like, 12 people, and they're all 60, 65 and up, and I was, like, 35, and I just remember
Yeah,
seeing Carl sitting there at that table and just going like, "Oh my god," these people wrote the textbooks I'm still reading today, so it's crazy.
yeah, yeah, Carl did a lot. Yeah, like I said, I know we could spend, so many sessions talking about everything that Carl did for the profession, but even in, residency, I read his book, Contemporary Implant Dentistry, I think 2nd edition was published
Yeah,
in, I think, what, 1982, right? Or, it could be it was in the 92 maybe? It was that went through a lot of iterations, but the point
yeah,
is that, I'm reading this stuff and we still use so much of it today. I mean, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'm looking up I
Um,
don't have all my books here, I haven't been in my books in forever, but I happen to still have this one up on the shelf.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, one thing that was I think we should talk a little bit about the Misch wisdom because, you're certainly now a lineage of it and you're seeing it all firsthand. I
Sure.
know Craig and Carl, I've got brothers and a couple I speak to and a couple I don't. you know,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes you're way too different or way too similar to your brothers, but for whatever
100%.
reason it is. But yeah, no, you can't really go through dental implants without going through the Misch family to some degree. I think, and
Yeah.
you're living it. I mean, what are you seeing there? I'm sure that you've been privy to a lot of private conversations about the history of implant dentistry. I mean, what have you learned?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot. I mean, that's such a loaded question because it's a lot of the things that we thought, and kind of like what I was talking about earlier, is a lot of the things that we thought were, you know, law or fact
Right.
or we're challenging now. So what I've learned is that
Yeah. Things
things are
from this
constantly
book.
changing. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, but a lot of those things that are in there are still, I mean, there's still so much of that that we use today, but a lot of it is also challenged, and I think that just being able to realize that and say,
Right.
and adapt and look at new things, and especially now with digital, dentistry and prosthetics, especially on my end, with the way that things are going with prosthodontics and milling and design and just the digital workflows and how everything is and is going to change here soon.
Hmm.
I mean, we're going to be doing things in 5 years that we
Sure.
wouldn't even dream of. And the 5 years of growth, in the next, in digital dentistry and technology is going to be about as much as the last 25 years,
For
compounded.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
um,
I definitely want to get into that for sure. I mean, but hold that thought on printing. I know I want to talk to you about printing and digital dentistry. Um,
mhm,
but you said, this was kind of our working copy, the law back then.
right.
And what, do you think that maybe there was a lot of hypothesis in here? Um, or do you think that these things are still the Bible and still the law of
Uh,
contemporary
yeah, I think
prosthetics?
both. I think both big time. I think that, it was more of an expansion of you had this idea and then things kind of you had you had literature support, right? But
Hmm.
then you had that ideas kind of branch off of that.
Hmm.
And those ideas were just so new and novel at the time that it was accepted as law, right? And then we kind of
Hmm.
find out later it's dogma. And we see that so much to this day in what we're doing, with different workflows and different aspects in dentistry and how we do things. And I mean, you look at occlusion. People thought occlusion caused periodontal disease up until the 80s, right? Like people thought
Hmm.
that all these different. So yeah, there's both. And what Carl was really good at is he was extremely intelligent, and Craig the same way. Working with him, I thought I was hot stuff coming down here, hot shot
Yeah.
prosthodontist. I knew everything, right? I could do,
Mhm.
and I took his treatment plan. Like the first plan he showed me was real complex, old implants, 30-year-old Branham marks. And, we had these, he was going to take some teeth out, do some teeth. And in 5 minutes, he came up with this comprehensive plan that he typed up on a Word document, still does it, customizes every plan. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to break this down and just tear it apart and see, I'm going to find something. I'm going to challenge. I mean, he did this in 5 minutes, right? It took me like 20 minutes just to kind of dissect the whole, like everything and break it. And I'm like, oh, man, I agree with all this. He's the surgeon. He's the surgeon, and
Yeah.
he's got that pros background that for so long, he was working with Carl and working with the Institute. And, you know, Carl was really good at at he was a people person from what I've heard. He was
Yeah.
very good at getting up on stage and just captivating audiences. So,
Mhm.
like one of the things in his book was, not splinting. And this is big that I argued in pros when I was there is we wouldn't splint implants post the foramen, right?
Right.
Because of jaw flexure
Right.
of the mandible and pain. And, you know, that was based upon old PFM roundhouse bridges before we had implants, and you get cement breakage, and you'd have telescopic copings that you would use, which, ended up, we saw how bad those were. And, you took these principles and applied it to implants, but it's not the same.
Right.
Look at splinting. Another one's a big one, splitting teeth to implants, right? Teeth
Right.
move, right? The periodontal
Right.
ligament has, intrusion, lateral movement during mastication. Implants don't move, right?
Right.
Well, actually, they kind of do a little bit. And Craig actually did his master's thesis in pros, you know, uh, finite elemental stress study on the movement of implants. And,
Right.
you know, so let's take the stress breakers and put them on teeth and implants. And so we can, remove that stress force, right? Well, then
Hmm.
later on, I remember Dr. Leo, God rest his soul, my pros faculty passed away at UAB, but he was incredible. I remember distinctly, he looked at me and he's from Taiwan. And he said, I got patients who've had that for 20 years. And,
Hmm.
and, Dr. Craig's like, yeah, you can splint implants to teeth. Like you
Hmm.
can, like, and, but that was law, for the longest
Right.
time because he
Right.
said so. Right.
Yeah.
And theoretically, I mean, nobody's going to really challenge that. I mean, it's one of those things where it makes sense, right? And there's some background to, what we saw before. And so there's just a lot. There's a lot that we're kind of finding that is might have been dogma, but it was,
Hmm.
you know, for all good intents and purposes.
Yeah. Oh, it was for good intentions for sure. I mean, you had to have some kind of a law. So, you go back like my predecessor, Truman Baxter, who's still with us, thank God. But he talks about his time in the Alabama Implant Study Club, and he was going down in like 1970, 69, 70, 71 to go
Yeah.
visit this little known guy nobody knew about named Hilt Tatum to place dental implants. And then they started this Alabama
Yeah.
Implant Study Club.
That's
And these
right.
guys were just doing it, even though it was, probably illegal. If you asked anybody in New York City or Washington, D.C., it was illegal. These implants, you're going to kill somebody. And they were doing it down south. Alabama, Florida, that was the hub, between that in that region.
That's
And
right.
Truman told me an interesting story. He said they were having these little meetings. They started having little annual meetings, and it was all these Southern gentlemen. And then all of a sudden, a few Northerners started to trickle down and started to come into the club. And he said he would be sitting in a hotel lobby late at night drinking bourbon and bourbon whiskey with guys. His buddy was Joe Littlejohn, that was Sam Jarrett's mentor,
Little
um,
John,
and
nice.
um, and he'd be talking to Hilt Tatum and some of the other guys, and then like the Lenny Linkouts would come down, and this guy he said there was this young little guy always sitting over in the corner, and we'd be talking, we'd be writing on napkins, and this guy had a notepad out, and he'd be writing down everything we say, and he said, and lo and behold, that Yank published a textbook. and he and it was this guy, it was your in-law uncle, whatever. It was Craig's brother. He said
That
that
is a
Yankee,
great story.
that young Yankee published a textbook on everything that we were doing.
Oh, that is hilarious.
And but
Wow.
I mean, kudos to the young
Oh
Yank,
god.
the northerner from up north in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
Michigan. He
Yeah.
systematized it, right? And he made like a
That's
theory. I
right.
call this a working hypothesis, right? It's just a theory. And he made something that
Exactly.
we could all test and follow, right?
That's right. Man, that is a great story. That is, yeah, what they say in the South is, somebody from up north, is a Yankee, but people from up north that come down and they don't leave or they steal ideas and write textbooks, those are damn Yankees, right?
Yeah. So
Oh, that's funny. God,
that
Hilt Tatum, yeah, and Jack Lemmon's,
yeah.
was just so big in the engineering. So UAB there's a lot of engineering background with the program, and Dan Given, who's a part of the program, who went to Mississippi State and the BioHorizons implant company, that was Carl was involved with for the longest time. Those guys were Mississippi State guys, and Craig talks about when he went down and did some of those earlier studies with BioHorizons. They drove over to Mississippi State and had implant studies with pig jaws, and it was interesting. And at one time, I think Toronto, God, I think it was in the 70s.
If you can place implants but can't scale your practice, this course is for you. Core Business breaks down how to build a 5, 10, 20 arch per month practice, generating millions of dollars of revenue, learning systems, teams, marketing, and leadership. Stop guessing, start scaling. Core Business, how to 5, 10, 20. One time only, April 24 and 25, 2026.
I think Toronto, an implant center was created of some capacity. That was like the first like international
Yep.
implant, but it was between Toronto and
Yep.
Birmingham, Alabama. And
Mm-hmm.
Dan Given would always say, like, this is how close, like, this all kind of became to being, the epicenter of all that. And I guess it was around that time with Hilt Tatum. But it's just so much history that you go back and you look, and it's just like incredible how we got to where we are, with these tidbits of pieces that are put together and systemized, like what you said. Carl put it all together, and he could captivate,
Yeah.
and he could get that point across from what, you know, looking at everything that he did. So
Yeah. He had a way with an audience. I saw his last I think the last major speech he gave was, I don't know, was that 14 or so? I think we were ICOI or AAID, and there was like 1,500 people there, and we all kind of knew it was going to be his last speech, but because he
yeah,
had brain cancer. But his humor was so good, and even though everybody was sad to know that it was probably his last time he'd present,
hmm,
there was like, I mean, we went back and forth between wet eyes and laughter, just like he had the whole place rolling,
yeah,
by the time he was done. So it was, what he was a great man. Your family, great contribution
thanks.
to implant dentistry. It's a great lineage, great path. So let's talk about the future. You're doing some cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're
You-
we're we're trying to keep up with everything. I mean, it's just like kind of what I was talking about with some of the points I wanted to discuss, but like when I first came down with Craig, and we're working together and all these ideas, new things coming out, and he's like, oh, that doesn't work because this, and that didn't work. So like, for example, zirconia abutments, full contour zirconia abutments, right? That
right.
engage that into titanium implants. You start seeing where the titanium and fracturing of the abutments and fracturing the implant neck. And we learn, oh, you can't do that. You can't have abutments on the zirconia cannot be in contact with titanium, at a machine fit surface, because wear and it'll break. And then we go to this new direct to multi unit design with these zirconia restorations, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, well, you're going to wear down the internal of the zirconia chamber, that seats onto the multi unit abutment. You're
Hmm.
torquing these titanium screws directly onto the zirconia. You're going to get wear. And now it's just so crazy, is because now we're starting to see, like, hey, this has been a few years now, and this works. Like, this works, and it's working. And like, they're figuring out, with the milling capacities, not, and we're taking steps to get to where things, we might be going a totally different direction, but if we don't take these steps now, we'll never know which way we're going to go. Like, I was giving a lecture out in Phoenix City,
Hmm.
um, and I showed up the grammetry. It's called OptiSplint,
Hmm.
and oh gosh, I'm losing my mind. I can't believe I forgot his name, but talking about different ways to do digital acquisition. That's kind of been a focus of mine as a prosthodontist, is digital
Right.
workflows, accuracy, verifying. accuracy of these digital workflows. And I show the OptiSplint up on, it's like, this is one way we can do this, right?
Hmm.
And in, the audience, prosthodontist, it's like, hey, I know who created that. And the guy's, he's like, he's sitting right here, and it's a young pros my age. He's the guy who invented, photogrammetry. I mean, not photogrammetry, the OptiSplint, the grammetry, the, honeycomb technique,
Hmm.
and I talked to him for a while, and it was really interesting where, that's one way to do things, but photogrammetry is kind of where we're moving to. But those parts and pieces of the process of verifying, going from A to B, and, parts of what was used in the OptiSplint is, is, they took that with photogrammetry and said, okay, we can do that, but we can take pieces of that and make it simpler, and go from A to B quicker. And just the whole, where we're going with things is, it seems like we're going in one direction, but we
Hmm.
very well could veer off and be doing things totally different with AI, and, predicting what the next steps are going to be,
Right.
and that's why it's so exciting, because I think this is the best time to be in pros, because it's all digital and
Yeah,
everything is, right in our realm. So
I agree. Was that OptiSplint? His name is Russ. Is it Russell or somebody?
that's him. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
right? I can't remember
Yeah.
his last name.
Yeah.
Um,
No, yeah.
so yeah, so where let's talk about digital pros. A couple of things. Is there I'm all digital. Everything is digital really. I haven't done mounted
Sure.
analog case in forever unless it was an overdenture, but I mean it's been a while. Um, are we getting into a dangerous time where everyone thinks that they're gonna be a prosthodontist through digital technology?
Who, like surgeons?
Surgeons, GPs, I mean, like, everybody, I mean, maybe I'm kind of like, I already have my preconceived answer in my mind because I get a lot of people who call me and they wanna know what equipment to buy to do,
Right.
fixed immediate load, full arch, all on X, whatever, and, I have to back up and say, "Where are you getting your pros training from?" What do you know about pros? So I
Yeah.
kinda run into that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's honestly more of, the labs. So you have different, labs and lab techs that are, they have this technology, and they can do things faster and more efficiently than the doctor can, right? And so, because of that, I think that they they can expedite the process quicker and say, no, this is the way it needs to be done. And then, docs are kind of left in the, you know, dissecting things that are actually important about the design,
Right.
about, how you're getting that information, um, what materials are being, the dentists are kind of thinking of it as the entire patient versus just the teeth.
Mhm.
And, so it's the lab techs will, you know, convince the dentist, no, we got it. Like, we got you. I mean, it's like the same thing for partials, right? It's like when
Right.
you're in, you send, how many dentists send a model to lab and say,
Yeah.
design my partial for me. And they're like, okay, we'll just do it. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's not a bad, inherently bad thing, but it can be bad if there's no, there's no
Yeah.
check or break or any kind of like, hey, let's stop and think about this for a second.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but it's in analog world, in the digital world, problems can be magnified, if not exponentially. For example, in the pros world, if I haven't done a metal-based partial in a long time, I could do a mean one, but I would design where I want my indirect and direct retainers, my chevron rest, my ball clasp, all that stuff, and I would make
Yeah.
sure I took like a final not impression, not just some alginate, send it to the lab, design this for me. And, back then we had 60, 50, 60, 70-year-old lab techs that have been designing partials for 40 years, and you
Hmm.
could kind of rely on them. Do you feel like in the lab industry today, it's digital is moving at light speed and you've got all these, 24-year-olds designing on their computer? You see more of a danger in that?
Well, and it's not just in implants. Okay. So
Yeah.
what I'm seeing at a bigger scale with these labs, and the same thing that's happening in dentistry and um, consolidation and DSOs and private equity, or they're buying labs as well. So who are they going to hire? People that they can pay the least, and everybody knows how to work a computer. And we used to, in our generation, right? So in pros, we used to joke we get crowns back from certain labs. I won't say who, but we look at the anatomy on the crown, like such a pros thing to do, right? To criticize the anatomy and but we'll be like, yeah, there's just some millennial with a beanie and a nose ring. He used to work at Starbucks who designed this. He has no idea about dentistry at all.
Probably true story. True story.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's
Yeah.
kind of, and now we're getting into implants and design, and
Yeah.
it's you can design and and know and kind of get to where you're not causing a lot of harm, I guess. Like, you really can get there, but to really I mean, there's still, the doc is still driving everything for sure. That's definitely, the buck stops with them, and the lab techs are, they're so it's not all on the labs, but it definitely, I think that one thing too is that is kind of challenging for me, especially in where I'm at, is, I would love to start. I've talked to some labs, I've been lecturing a little bit and, starting to do courses, and one of the things for me before I go on stage to give a lecture, talk about, you know, implant dentistry, or if whether it's for a company or for a study club, is it's daunting to try to get up in front of a stage of really intelligent people and tell them something they don't already know. Like,
Right.
I'm going to get up here and just ramble for an hour, and they're going to be like, I know this, right?
Right.
Well, now with information being so readily available, especially with God, Chat GPT, right? I mean, it was like you had social media, you had,
Right.
forums, you had, paywalls that you could get past. And now you have a search generator, open evidence where you can get, literature support on any question that you want. You can get taught how to do so. Information's so readily available now that the bar and the standard of knowledge has risen, right? I think that
Right.
people can get a baseline of knowledge that's higher than what it used to be, and that's why, you know you remember, I mean, when it was like only specialists should be placing implants, right? I mean, that was for a long time. That was a long time, and then,
I think
you
I had
know
death threats about placing implants almost.
right?
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
yeah.
it really was. But I mean, at the time, there wasn't really a lot on it, and you had to go to a residency to be able to place implants,
Yeah.
or you had to just know the right people, and in your clinical setting to be able to do that is just so daunting. And
Yeah.
then, you had AEGDs and GPRs that were teaching it, and so you had, okay, so now, you're getting a little bit more readily available information. Then you had, like, weekend courses. You look at the Misch Institute, right? Then you
Mhm.
had, he systemized it for the general dentist. And
Right.
there's arguments where it's like, are you doing harm or are you doing good? And in my view, I guess going back to, now you have Chat GPT, now you have social media, now you have all this just information that's so readily available right at your fingertips that, it raises the baseline knowledge. And I think that improves the field. I do. I
Mhm.
think that, you know, can you get yourself into situations that you probably shouldn't be in? Yeah.
Right.
But there's information out there now about that. There's information about complications,
Yeah.
so it's overall good for the field, in my opinion.
Oh, I think, yeah, for sure. Well, the public needs it. We need more people doing this correctly. I mean, there's a great demand for teeth and missing teeth. So, I mean, it's not like anybody should feel threatened by letting more people learn it as long as people learn it the correct way,
Right.
but The ability to go out there and gain information and the ability to do it is two different things, like, it's
100%.
readily available. There's chat engines, right? There's YouTube videos. I mean, there's all kinds of learning, but, I mean, I think that, having mentors and experiences, and multiple courses would be paramount to the young practitioner, right? I mean, obviously, don't you think?
I mean, of course, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the flip side, right? That's the flip
yeah.
side of you need to have experience and you need to be with a good mentor before, you're starting to, try to take on something. But you need to push the envelope, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's dangers that can happen, and that's the flip side. And you're totally right.
Um, I wanna chat about some of the things that you're excited about doing. I wanna get into the technology because you
Okay.
texted me some ideas. What's hot on your mind? You talked about 3D printing. You talked about hygiene, 3D printed resins. What was that all about?
Yeah. So, and I need to find the studies, on this, but like, okay, so like talking about 3D printed, like that's I would say that now that's okay. Let's talk about print immediate load prosthetics for implant restorations, right?
Right,
What did we used to do? We used to take an acrylic denture and pick up titanium cylinders and we'd carve it out, share a side, and make a FP3,
right.
So, my when I was in residency, um, my challenge was how do I do a mandibular FP1 immediate load? How am I
Okay.
going to do like how am I going to pick up a denture and turn that into an FP1 prosthesis with ovate ponics and contour? Um, can I share my screen? Actually, I might even show you some photos. Like, um,
Yeah,
how am I going to make it? Do what?
which picture? Are you looking for this workflow picture you sent, or no?
I've got a photo from a presentation actually I was going to show,
Go
but
to,
it's
go to share and then
mhm.
click screen,
Yeah, maybe that'll work.
and you should find it right there.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So like, mandibular FP1 restoration to me was like, okay, that's going to be like, how am I going to do this? So now we have, you know, I have a case here where I talk about like conventional versus digital workflows. And this was actually my uncle, Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. Let's see if I can get this.
That all looks, painfully familiar to me.
Yeah, exactly. I'll pull up in a second. But yeah, it's like, okay, so how am I going to do this? And digital answers these questions, and now we have yeah, here we go. So this was how we used to do it. Take
Right.
impressions, um poor models, this and that, and this was my uncle right here, lower FP1. We had to do. I mean, I can't make a denture on him. Like, he's got exostoses that are bigger than you know
Yeah,
I mean, that's an aircraft carrier, right? So
right.
like that night I took impressions, pour the models, and in 24 hours, I just handmade this FP1 provisional. It didn't even use multi units. I mean, this was like 2017, I think. I mean, this was,
Yeah.
so then I'm thinking, okay, like how can I float something?
Are you looking to attract more full arch patients? SIN 360 is offering a professional marketing video package. Their production team comes to your office, documents a case from A to Z, including patient testimonials and final delivery. It captures an in-office tour, creates a high-impact case study that you can deploy across your website and your social media. The full package, $12,995. Oh, but there's more. It includes $5,000 of free SIN product. If you're serious about expanding your reach and maximizing ROI, email videos at sin360.us. Tell them the All In, All On X pod sent you.
How can I get, and then it turned into, okay, how am I going to get, how are we going to take, we have digital, right? So like, are we going to be able to verify that. So, like, how accurate is this gonna be?
Right.
And then photogrammetry just comes out of nowhere, and I was like, "That's it, like, you're not breaking the digital workflow, like, this is perfect." Like, you're not breaking the digital workflow to try to verify a printed model that's
Right.
already now you have printed that's breaking the digital workflow. Now you have person by hand putting in analogs. That's all introducing error.
Right.
And I went to Dan Given in my residency. I said, "Hey, let me do a study. I want to 3D print a verification jig, and then have titanium cylinders, like tie bases or something in it, and let's like do a study measuring comparison." He's like, "First of all, it's too hard to study that to get actual measurements to
Yeah.
objectively." Show that. And second of all, I'm not paying for all those tie bases. And I'm like, okay, fine. So it, and I'm sitting there just thinking like, how can I like verify this workflow? How can I, even just like a 3 unit bridge, right? How am I going to
Yeah.
verify this? So, you have photogrammetry come out of nowhere and, and it works, right? So it's accurate. And then you have, going back to like the mandibular FP1, you pick up the denture. We're picking up dentures and we're making things out of acrylic. It's porous. How many of those break, right? I mean, how many times do you see those come back and the patient has bad hygiene?
Right.
You
Yeah.
pull it out and barnacles come out, right? Even with the final acrylic to metal, right?
Right.
So, then I see zirconia comes along, this polished zirconia. We know all the studies on how biocompatible that is, and how bacteria static it is. I mean, with the surface smoothness and how tissue responds. I forgot the author, but he was doing GBRs with zirconia membranes, and he was getting exposures and saying, okay, look at the tissue. Like you're not getting this catastrophic mess that you got with like tie mesh exposures.
Hmm.
And so you know with this digital workflow, we're printing the restorations, and studies come out talking about surface smoothness with printed restorations and porosities, and how it's not quite as smooth as zirconia. The texture is a little
Hmm.
bit rougher. Bacterial adhesion. I'm seeing patients come back with really bad staining. The
Hmm.
glaze we're putting on it wears off over time, and I'm like, doing
Wow.
these. Yeah, I'm doing these experiments in the lab
Yeah.
here, and I told my lab tech, I was like, let's no glaze. Let's just high shine, just polish the
Yes.
crap out of it. Get it as
Same.
smooth as possible. And that's where I'm at. And then what I've kind of started noticing though is, and this is what's crazy, is that in my head, I'm like, okay, like we were talking about the surgery that you do, this immediate load surgery, and you have an open wound, and then you have this printed material that's going to collect bacteria. How's that going to heal? How's that tissue going to respond? How's that the success of your implant? And if you have to do, God forbid, any additional grafting at the time of placement or for sinus lifts, you're inducing bacteria to the surgical field, right? And I'm getting these patients back with printed restorations that had candy coat, that had resin. And if you want to actually show some of those cases, and this is on teeth, right?
Yeah. Are these
And
the
the
ones you sent
gingival,
to me?
yeah, and the gingival
Okay.
margins around teeth
Let me
on these
see.
patients. Yeah, so that's a printed.
Are
I
you
don't know
looking to
if,
show one of these patients?
yeah, I wanted to show, um, you know, like that.
This?
This was a printed. Yeah, okay. So this patient came to see us, and there's a whole lot going on here. This is a really fun case, but so same day prep, temp, implants and natural teeth, provisional restorations, crown lengthening. This is 2.5 months printed restoration with glaze and the candy coat technique afterwards. And
Okay.
when I tell you, I took off her lower temps, and the gingival margin and the periodontal health of those teeth was absolutely incredible. And I'm like, this is not, I did not expect this. And those were two different patients where I saw that. And I'm seeing some of these surgeries come back with printed restorations, and they're healing, so well. And
Hmm.
so, I'm kind of going back on what I'm thinking. It's like, well, maybe, maybe I need to go, is our printed restorations and does that matter as much? And they're looking at, implant design, right? So, it's so funny because you had these tissue level implants that came out a long time ago, and
Yeah.
they were being used in a way, surgeons were the first ITI, the Synocta, the connection, the ITI implant. They're being placed number 8 and 9, right? Well, that was a freaking disaster. You can't have a metal collar showing, and the patient is
Right.
smiling.
Right.
So they're like, okay, this, we can't do that. And then you just kind of forgot about tissue levels. They weren't really in vogue for so long. Some people still swore by them. I come down here and Craig is like, man, I love these things. And I'm like, really? Tissue levels. Now I got to learn how to restore that. Great. So, and then we start
Was he doing them
doing
in the
them.
cosmetic region too, or just posteriorly?
Mainly posterior, right? Like
Right.
posterior mandible.
Right.
Where anatomical limitations are.
Yep.
But some patients, a lot of our patients here are older, lower smile line, and
Right.
if we're gonna like cantilever teeth, that's a big thing that I'm into. And you know what we see is wow, these tissue level implants actually are great. They actually work awesome. Like the bone levels. There's a study, a systemic review that came out of Sweden, right? That
Yeah.
showed lower risk of periimplantitis with tissue level implant. Was that because of the one piece design, that's spanning the
Yeah.
crestal bone? Or is it
Right.
the surface texture of the titanium collar? Is it the micro movement around the bone? Like it's just these things are coming back and we're asking these. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with individual points you're making. I think you're spot on. I mean, the
Yeah,
tissue level implant, it's like a one-piece implant in essence, because you're getting the margin away from the bone crest. So
that's right.
if you're getting forces and you're getting flexure, especially if you don't have a good cold weld between your abutment and your implant, right? If
Right.
you've got micro motion and you've got those,
Yep.
those forces at the crest, if you're getting that above the crest, so if
Yep.
you're 1 or 2 millimeters above the crest, and a tissue level implant does that, then you get less force on the bone. The only question and the reason I asked if they're posterior is because predicting the soft tissue after the surgical procedure is difficult, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That's why
you
they quit using them.
right, right. Yeah. But I think you're spot on. I mean, if you can put it in appropriately. So it's funny we bring this up because in 2000, and I'm sorry, what year did you graduate, pros and come out into private practice?
God, I came out 2020, I think Pros was when I was
Okay.
working private practice, moonlighting and stuff, but yeah, 2020, I would say is when I really started full tilt.
So a little in history, I'm old enough to remember, the 2000s vividly where, you got bone loss around most all your implants, crestal bone loss around most all your implants.
Expected, right? 1
Almost
millimeter in the first year, right?
Yeah. In fact, I have a funny story. That night, I think it was the night I met Carl Misch at that steakhouse in Chicago with like 12 old guys and little young me. I tell this story sometimes. Everybody was sitting around, all these old guys were sitting around and they're talking about bone and bone loss and, you know, and one guy they're talking about the 2 millimeters of bone loss you always get. And one guy goes, "You
Yeah,
always
yeah.
get bone loss to the first thread. You always get bone loss to the first thread." And I didn't say a word until this point. Like an hour and a half, 2 hours into dinner, I'm like just listening to all these old guys talk. And I'm like, "Hey, excuse me, why don't you just put the thread higher?" And they're like, "Ah, no. Oh, we tried that. That doesn't work either." And I, and I was like, "Well, why are we
It
talking
ain't got
about the
no
first
gas in it.
thread? Why are we talking about the first thread?" And I went through learning implant dentistry with surgeons blaming restorative and pros for the bone loss,
Still
going, "Oh, the
happens.
bone was fine when I gave it to you," right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I learned early on, I was like, "It's the connection. It's the connection."
yeah,
Because I was
right,
looking at finite element analysis and I was playing with bicon implants that don't lose bone, right? And I was like,
right,
it's the engineering. And the funny thing was I looked back
yep,
like 10 years later and I realized that in all these textbooks, like the one like your uncle-in-law, they always have the bone level and the implant was always up here,
mhm,
right? And then they go,
mhm,
"Oh, just put it down lower if you have a problem with it." And then you'd get a saucer,
mhm,
right?
Mhm.
and it was the engineering the whole time, really.
100%. It was an external hex too. You gotta remember it's an external
Yeah,
hex, and
yeah,
that I mean, the micro movement around those at the time, I mean, God, the things that and that's why we're changing what we're thinking because the engineering. So the connection, having a stable monolithic material that's transversing the crestal bone. There's so many things that are changing. Bone, Carl said, was balsa wood, D4 bone in the posterior maxilla, D1 bone in the mandible is
right,
oak, right? The best
yeah,
quality wood. And it really was a great way of
yeah,
relating, to dentist and telling them, okay, where the bone quality is good, think about it this way. But the early engineering, you know, was such a big deal
yeah,
and kind of drove a lot of the things that we thought were true. Why though? Because we
right,
were restricted with what we had. We had grade 4 commercially pure titanium external hex implants that were weaker, that you better place a bigger implant, more surface area, because that's what's going to cause bone loss if you have too small of an implant, right? Or you want more surface area, blah blah. Well, now we have grade 23, extra low interstitial element titanium implants where we can place a narrower diameter implant with a conical connection, and we're like, wait a second, bone is not wood. Bone's a living, that's a piece of vital tissue. It needs
right,
vascularity. You need more
right,
bone. You need less titanium. You need,
mhm,
and a lot of those concepts were just so, biomechanically engineered, driven decisions based on what we had at the time. And it's
mhm,
just amazing that that it well, and it was that way for the longest time. Like you just said, you
yeah,
get bone loss to the first thread, and you know, you just go, kind of going back and thinking about all that. It's just really incredible. And yeah, I
right,
mean, the tissue level implant is great, and the Bicon implant, Jesus, you said that. I mean, I remember being in Pros and looking at you remember, the journal periodontology, you get it's wrapped, it's wrapped with the Bicon, and you look at it
yeah,
and you're just take it off and throw it out, and
yeah,
I'm getting these patients that are coming in, and, like, some of them have Bicons, and I'm like, "What like, why are we not designing implants like this? Like, look, it's drowning in bone. Like, how are you gonna you can't even if you try to get it out, you couldn't. They're just drowning in bone."
yeah,
And well, if you wanna have a screw, if you wanna have a screw
yeah,
connection, you gotta widen out that internal chamber. That Morse connection is so narrow and so steep, like, you can't put a screw in there. I mean, the old Ankylos, the Ankylos, system,
yeah,
CX, the screw is so small, and it's
yeah,
like it's embedded in the
right,
abutment, right? Because it's
right,
so small that you can't
yeah,
get the screw head out to
right,
replace it, so it's one
right.
time, one use. But man, I had a case here, 9 and 10, patient came in.
Hey, JB Dental Lab is the lab that full arch clinicians trust when precision truly matters. JB combines advanced digital workflows, photogrammetry compatibility, expert design teams, and high strength zirconia to deliver prosthetics that fit, function, and last. Their communication is top tier. Their turnaround times are reliable. Quality is the reason that so many high volume, all on X practices partner with JB Labs. Visit jbdentallab.com for reliable quality, full arch support. Tell them that the All In, All on X pod sent you.
And these old Ankylos implants were like, man, they look so good. And,
Right.
um, we're just kind of connecting the dots, right? Like we're taking ideas from here and we're putting it together. And that's where photogrammetry and printed materials and everything is going to, at some point soon, converge into an even better either process or material that we're going to
Mhm.
have that will catapult what we're doing. And I think AI is going to be a big part of that. And we the way
How do
that
you
we're
how do you think so? Explain to the audience because I've talked to you, chatted with you on the side on Facebook and on text.
Yeah.
Tell the
Yeah,
audience
well
a little glimpse into the future.
well, before I say that, I've gotta say how you and I first talked was incredible because it was you called out and dude, this was awesome. It was, you called out, a company that was claiming these, um and you were like, "Look, you wrote literature and you've been a part of these studies," and you were like, "A lot of this that companies put out, you've gotta really,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of this can be just total garbage, right?" And
Marketing. Yeah.
yeah, and I just respected that so much because I've seen that, and Craig even, like I've been around him, and I'll show him a study, and he's gonna be like, dig a little bit deeper, and I'm like, wow, that's really telling. It's like politics, so.
Mhm.
But yeah, but yeah, like where AI is going to be going, I think, we have data and we have information that we're going to be able to just put together information so much faster and come to conclusions a lot faster with a lot
Right.
of, you know, in different ways that we could before. And it's not always going to be clinically relevant, but it's going to be objective. And
Right.
it's going to take out a lot of the emotion that's tied to what we're doing. And I think that's been a big emphasis in our profession too is dogma and a lot of these ideas. And well, I've been doing it this way for this long, and this is where
Yeah.
what I believe, and it's uncomfortable to try something new. And
Right.
now with AI, we're going to be able to essentially put that out the window even faster and look at all of this compounding data and say this is fact. This is what we have. And I mean, it's going to start teaching itself at some point. Um, it's hard to say like where things are, you know, and there's so much that I actually can say, but it is exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just I can tell what's on the forefront of you. What's just on the surface of your brain doesn't even begin to touch, how deep it goes. I know that you're developing some great things. I'd like to work with you some more, my friend. I mean, I wish I had more time. You're in Tampa? No, Sarasota,
Yeah,
right?
Sarasota, Florida. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would love to get down there and see. Couple of things I wanted to just make joke of a little bit,
Yeah.
make light of. The way that Craig and Carl and those guys talk about, and even Truman, Hilt, everyone related bone to wood,
Yeah.
and I've worked around wood. I mean, I've helped frame houses and stuff like that and build stuff,
Sure.
and, um, I think I know what, pine feels like compared to particle board, compared to oak and mahogany. I found
Right.
students these days, I say it's like oak, and I have to start relating, bone to food types
That's
because I find
hilarious.
so many people haven't really touched wood.
That's
So,
true. So where's the steak? What part of the mouth is steak?
I don't know, but I'll be like, "Man, you're drilling back there, it's like warm cheese." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
That's okay, I get it now.
So, I
There was,
found that I connect with younger docs a little better that way.
yeah, and actually I know that we're kinda running out of time here, but, gosh, there was something I wanted to share, I don't even know if I can get it up, but,
Yeah,
you know,
try it.
working with family is very, very, um, telling. There's a lot of, you know, reflection you have to do, when you work with family and these people know you, and it's not like you go to work and you have your work life and your home life and you can, separate the two. But, with these younger docs, like it's so daunting when you get out and you want to be right about everything and you want to be an authority about everything. But, and I can't even, gosh, I can't even find it, but there's a picture of, that my daughter came home, one day from school and she's starting to like draw. Let me see if I can. Okay, I found the photo, I'm gonna send it to you. She's starting to draw, all these pictures and stuff, and she made this, like, caricature for Groundhog Day, and, um,
Okay.
and it was, like, this just stupid looking groundhog. It was just arms out. I just texted it to you. I don't know if I can get it on or not, but,
Let me take a look here.
wait, no, I know, because if I text it to you, I can pull it up. It it was so funny because here, let me pull this up.
I'm showing it up on the screen
Whenever
right now.
exactly, that's it. It's kind of let me see if I can show it. It's just hilarious.
My husband's name sparkles. He saw his shadow.
Yeah. So I just looked at this and I just died out laughing because I came home from work and she had my groundhog's name as Sparkles. He saw a shadow. And the picture of that groundhog just made me laugh so hard. And I'm like, I get home some nights and, we're redoing our kitchen and we're redoing our bathroom right now. And my wife is, so much better at that stuff than I am. Right.
Right.
And I'm like, this is how I feel whenever you introduce me to the interior designer because I have no idea what y'all are talking about. I feel like Sparkles right now. Like, just don't listen to what he's saying. It's okay. Like, when you're at work and you have a home life, like you don't always have to be totally right about everything. You don't have to be, you know, and when you get with your employees, even it's like they're going to end up doing things better than you are. I mean, you've got to be able to relinquish a lot of that control and a lot of that ego, and just say like, I'm not going to be, the absolute best at everything.
Right.
I can relinquish a little bit of it, and that's okay, like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to tell you the difference between Decton and tile, right? Like, I can't they're asking me questions, I'm like, I don't know, like, so, when you're practicing and when you're with when you're out there, just one spoonful at a time is how you eat an elephant, and with all
Oh
this
yeah.
new emerging technology, it's so daunting and you just do the best you can and it's going to change and you just got to be able to adapt and do the best you can. And that's kind of one of the things where I have talked to younger docs, and they're coming out and they just have no idea where to start.
Right.
And that's going to happen in life at home, at work, you just do the best you can.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot out there, and for the younger docs, it's okay to go a little slow. It's okay to learn a little
Yeah.
bit before you come out as an authority. Before you try to open a teaching institute and you're 3 years out of school, um, and whatnot. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to look at your Instagram. What do you got some beautiful stuff on here. And
Thank you. Yeah.
this makes me laugh because I can't do this. I did a lot of this, but I just don't have time to sit down and do this anymore. Um, you are a full-fledged prosthodontist. You're still doing it all. You're not just doing all on 4, right?
Oh yeah, man, we do
Yeah.
teeth. That's been what's good. My
Yeah.
wife and I, she's a periodontist, so we brought teeth to the practice. Back to that.
Yeah. That's great. I just hired a prosthodontist, and I used to kick out, people that came in for consults that we needed to save their teeth, and now we're probably keeping them. We got a prosthodontist in town. He's in the other room right now.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
beautiful, beautiful pictures, man. I mean, this is great. So, at being a prosthodontist with this all on 4 craze, you know, d I mean, what's your feelings on that right now? What's your feelings with this all on X craze that everybody's doing?
Well, um, and this is another really. I'm glad you asked that because I wanted to kind of talk about, as a prosthodontist and as yourself being, a specialist and being, in this focusing on it, you're going to see a lot of complications. You're going to see people are going to send you things and you really get a different opinion on how to approach treatment planning in patients and you really think about things not now but not even 5 years but 15, 20 years down the road. And I love your podcast with Sonata. That guy is incredible. I mean, he's an absolute machine. And talking about FP1, restorations and, tissue loss and how, they manage it and how, some people see that and he's addressing like things that are way down the road. It's not just now, it's, what's going to
Mhm.
happen afterwards. And that's the kind of stuff that we see in the all on four craze, what's next, right? And there's just a lot of patients that we see a little bit younger, maybe, teeth that, I say if we can get like at least 10 more years out of this, you know, let's strategically place implants. Like every implant I look at, it's like, let me place this here because in 15 years, at this depth, at this angulation, at this location, 15 years, I'm going to use this again. I'm going to use this for a full arch. I'm going to use. So I think that the next step after, an all on four, you have revisions. But even the bone grafting guru, Craig Misch, we have, you move on to zygomatics and, yeah, but you really don't want to go down that road of revision after revision.
Right.
And I think that one of the things we talked about earlier with, the size of the implants that we're using, shorter, narrower, implants, not necessarily, this short and narrow, but like, just we can be a little bit more minimally invasive with how we're placing the implants, where we're placing them, so we can preserve some sites later.
Mhm.
Um, but the plan B always has to be in your mind when you're treatment planning for these all on X cases, um, because you will see it. You will see these
Yeah.
patients come back, and you got to have an answer for them. You got
Right.
to have, you got to be ready for that. So it gets tough though when you have a full arch of teeth that it's either you're going to do a full mouth rehab or you're going to do an all on X, and that's
Right.
what is really difficult because then those patients come back, this tooth here,
Yep.
need a root canal, take it out, do an implant tooth here. And
Yep.
over time, they're like, I should just done from the start. And you're like, well,
Maybe.
maybe, but you don't know. I mean, what if,
Clinical judgment is so important, like where do you draw the line? So
hmm
you've got a Knife, my buddy Knife, Sonata, brilliant FP1 guy. He's going to be back here May 1st and 2nd doing our FP1 class.
awesome.
And then I talked to Safa last week. It just released his, and in that episode, he got into he doesn't really believe in FP1 anymore. Very, very limited cases, and both
Yeah.
prosthodontists, both highly regarded in their field, as are you. And that treatment plan, that clinical decision is very hard. I've got a prosthodontist who refers to me for full arch. He's an older prosthodontist. He's been here, full implant choice. He's seen the beauty of our work, and he
Right.
still will have a patient with like 5 teeth in the anterior, 10, 6 through 10, and he wants me to do bilateral sinus lifts. And I'm like, and, uh, and then tomorrow he'll send someone over for a full arch. I need to pull out 10 teeth. Where is the clinical decision? I mean, where is
Yeah.
that? It's such a big gray area.
It's such a great,
Um,
and then you have cost too. So like that's, and what you really have to separate yourself from is this is so important. So you have to separate what's the path of least resistance from what's the right thing to do. Not just with patience and cost, but with just trends in the field. And I mean, all in X is easy. That's an easy like we have been doing that so much lately that the workflows have just, I mean, it's just like so much
yeah,
easier than it used to be.
yeah,
And, like sometimes when I'm treatment planning, you've got a point A and a point B. Okay. You're starting here and you want to get here. And for
right,
me in this practice is as a prosthodontist, it's the in between. Like, how do you get there? Like, that's the hard part is I got to give them teeth while they're healing from huge bone grafts or whatever. And they're coming in for adjustments. And in my head, I'm like, God, like I'm kind of, forgetting, what's the final destination here? And in my head, I'm like, how am I going to, I want to do the easiest thing that's just going to like, I don't want to do like a 6 unit bridge on, teeth that we're going to stage and have to take it on and off constantly and they're breaking, take it off for the surgery, place the implant, put it back on, take this tooth out, add this ponic here for provisionalization to give them teeth. You have to separate, and I'll tell myself like, okay, you got to stop thinking about that. You got to stop thinking about what's going to be the easiest thing for me
Right.
and look at for the patient what's going to be the easiest thing. And all on X is easy right now
Sure.
because there's been so much focus on it. And what if there were things that were easier with keeping teeth that we could make, like workflows we could create, with
Yeah.
like, okay, here's an example.
Uh,
Like, what if you
Yeah.
could just take an impression with a scanner and click a button and remove the soft tissue and only see hard tissue accurately?
Right.
You're not going to pack cord. You don't have to, you know, like, what if there was a lot of focus on that where you didn't have to use radiation, to visualize that hard tissue? What if you could use sonar? What if and people have talked about that in the past, but it kind of, gave way because it wasn't really in vogue, right? So
Right.
I think that I would challenge people to try to think, you know, of not the path of least resistance, but also what's going to be the best for the patient while also adhering to the KISS principle of keeping it simple.
Yeah.
It's a lot to juggle. I mean, I know I kind of rambled a little bit, talking about all on X, but
No, but
um,
I think it makes sense. I think maybe there's no right answer for every, I mean, unless you're in the room with that patient making that decision in their best interest. But you look at a case just like this picture, for example, right? We've got 8 teeth, okay? And we've got one can and you need bilateral sinus lifts. And there are people that would just shuck those 8 teeth in a heartbeat, right? And there are people that
yeah,
would
yeah,
never pull those teeth even if you needed 8 root canals and 8 custom posts,
exactly,
right?
exactly,
This work is hard. I think what maybe your point, I'm not, FP3 full arch is just easy. Okay, come on in, we'll just pull those, slick them out. We'll
right,
get you new teeth, right?
right.
But you talked about the path of least resistance for the doctor. I think that's what it is, right?
For everybody. I mean, even
Yeah,
just in the whole industry, you have the labs. It's easier for them. It's just the
yeah,
implant companies for the prosthetic materials that you're using is all geared towards this one thing, and it's like
yeah,
it's not just, it's like an industry standard that's making us kind of lean towards this decision versus on that case there, like what if, like he placed those implants in the posterior. And, what I do is I tell the patient, yeah, we're going to save these teeth because you're going to get 15, 20, you go through your hygiene assessment, you go through your caries risk analysis, but, in 15, 20 years, we'll be talking about this again, but we're not going to have to place 3 implants because we're going to use those. Like, we're going to keep those for that full arch restoration later. I had a patient come in. I can't, and going back to implant design, I can't tell you how many Brandemark implants come in that have like 50% bone loss and the peri-implant tissue status is perfect because it's a
yeah,
machine finish. It's a smooth finish.
yeah.
And I'm like, I'm using these implants that otherwise, but I mean, I had this patient come in with like 20 stereoses, right? Like all these implants. She's 90 years old. And I had to sleep a couple of them because I could have used all of them,
Yeah,
we get these some implants that, surface textures and this and that, that you get 1 millimeter of bone loss, like you said, and it's just dynamite, right? So,
yeah.
or a stick of dynamites, and then you lose everything. So, you know, it thinking about the future, maybe these decisions we make now could really pay dividends in the future if we do just invest in what you have that might not be the easiest thing to do. Like you said, doing custom cast post and cores if you have to. But um,
But wouldn't we have to go back to resort to being dentists and not business people?
yeah,
People are
that's
like,
the
"What can I do really fast?" With that picture I showed my friend, if I'm doing a crown, and I just
mhm,
did one on my mother-in-law, I do them very few nowadays, but I mean, I know how to do a crown. I will brag and tell you that labs have called me and told me that I need to teach classes on how to take impressions on crowns, okay? But,
yeah,
you're doing it right there with that cord. I see it, it's beautiful. I mean, that takes time and patience. I think a lot
Yeah.
more than what all on 4 takes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so much
Yeah.
more. And the cost too. Like, are we charging out patients, like how much is one custom abutment and crown? And we're not charging the full arch, per unit.
No.
It's a package deal,
Yeah.
like it's just this whole just path of least resistance towards it. And, with these newer grads, you just got to be really careful with who's teaching it and why they're teaching it. And, you know,
Well,
um,
business, insurance has ruined and coding of teeth
yeah,
and individual
yeah,
procedures has ruined dentistry. When I
right.
still do if I still do a full arch of fixed teeth, I charge a package price, but it's package
Well, we do
plus
too. Yeah,
per implant, and we make sure that we're gonna get compensated for the good work and time we're gonna do, and I think
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so that it's not gonna dissuade you in any way to do what's right for the patient from a financial sense,
You're right.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we're on the same line with that. I wanna talk about, I wanna talk about your training. You might have an institute coming, teaching classes, but before we do that, is there anything else that's really groundbreaking that you have a passion for in dentistry you wanna chat about? Talk about
Uh,
technology, AI, anything else?
I would say, um, gosh, yeah. I mean, what seeing how the passion, I guess, is seeing how have you seen the team marker from um True Abutment yet?
Right. I
Like
have.
we're on
Yep,
the cusp of that, man, and we're on the cusp of photogrammetry, like really getting into like a price point that everybody can be using it. And I just have this feeling that let me ask you something.
yeah.
Why has the design of the multi-unit abutment not changed?
So, I think that that's a big business question. I think,
Right?
once companies have invested a lot of R&D and a lot of money into a product, they wanna get their longevity out of it before they come out with the
Yeah.
next thing.
And is somebody going to come out with a multi-unit abutment that's actually a lot better than the one that's now, but it's not the universal multi-unit abutment, and it's going to complicate things, so docs aren't going to want to use it, right? So,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
think that with the photogrammetry becoming, a more accessible, even looking at, how we're taking impressions, scans using photogrammetry at the implant level instead of the abutment level, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a big passion of mine, and seeing where that's gonna go is, uh is big,
Yeah, and that a
but
lot of times comes down to cost. I mean, if you talk to, the developers of these photogrammetry companies, and I'm not gonna throw anybody's name out there because I don't wanna give them all the credit or put all the blame on them either. But, they're not gonna develop that scan body for all the different implant systems and platforms. They just can't afford it.
mhm,
But would it be better? Probably. Yeah. Would it be better? I think trainability, these companies look at, I mean, you look at just quote all on four, trademarked by Nobel Biocare. There, I said it. It was a
yeah.
marketing term, right?
Yeah, no, it
And the
was, yeah,
whole reason they did it for marketing was to say, "Hey, everybody, it's so easy. Buy our thing." I hate that term all on four because it just dumbs it down. You know, I just think it's
yeah,
pure marketing. But I think it comes down to why haven't they done it? Because they've got a lot of money invested in it. The companies
that's
do,
it.
and they
Yep,
know that they can train what I call the lowest common denominator, right? The dumbest dentist in the room who cares the least, they can almost train them to do it,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
To some extent.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I think, we're in a lot of agreement. I'd love to get down there and work with you more. Explain to me about this institute or your teaching. Maybe possibly, do you want to make an announcement or is that yet to come?
It's yet to come. We're looking at possibly starting to do some courses. What I was thinking is, with Exocad and digital design softwares, I have a lab that I think that it's important for dentists to all know how to do digital design, or at least see it, and at least know how to, look at it correctly. Because, like you said, who's becoming a prosthodontist? Well, everybody really should be thinking in that realm of, okay, I need to look at my designs and not
Yeah.
just say, "Hey, design this," and send it back, and
Right.
I'd be surprised. So, what I wanna do is have live patient sessions, with the local lab here, and we have a facility, and get dentists maybe in like a roundtable type
Yeah.
discussion, and so we can talk kind of like you and I are doing now, and throw up cases and say, okay, here's a case. Now here's everybody's got exocad, everybody's got this. Do a little bit of training before you come. Let's all design this case together, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
just throw it against the wall. We're gonna take a random person's design and treatment plan. We're gonna put it up there, and we're gonna make fun of you, or we're gonna dissect it and see like what we're gonna do. Then bring that patient in the next day, and then let's do this treatment, right? So
Yeah.
see how it works, have the lab facility there, watch
Yeah.
the steps,
Yeah.
watch the lab workflow and how what you did and you planned before is actually
Yeah.
incorporated into what the lab's doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Get control over your treatment. And we're kind of in the works of doing that right now. It'd be really exciting. I know y'all got some great stuff going on up there as well.
I want to
There's,
invite you on that, by the way. I hope you can make it. It's in like 3 weeks at our digital workflow module. It's our module 2. I call it prosthetics and digital workflow.
nice.
Why? Because everybody was excited to come learn digital workflow, and I realized they don't know prosthetics. So
Yeah,
we're going to talk about some key pros. If you can
great.
make it, I think it's March 12th. Yeah, come on up. Bring your wife. Be
Yep.
my guest. I want to spend some time with you and just get your input on what we're doing, and maybe we can work together somewhere down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. We love that for sure.
Okay. If you can't do that one, I think the next module 2 is in September, the 3rd weekend, I believe. I'll have to look it up on the calendar on the website.
Yeah, shoot me that info, man. Really would look
Okay.
forward to doing something like
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
This episode of the All In All NX Pod is powered by JB Dental Lab, your full arch lab partner for predictable, beautiful, and digitally precise results. From provisional same-day conversions to final zirconia, JB delivers consistency, communication, and craftsmanship that elevate your practice. The proprietary case portal keeps your team connected with quick communication and real-time updates, while their in-house designers and comprehensive full arch services ensure precision from conversion to final zirconia. If you're looking to grow your skills, JB's Educational Center hosts hands-on courses with live surgeries. Ready to streamline your All NX workflow with a lab that truly understands the surgical and prosthetic connection? Visit jbdentallab.com and tell them the All In All NX Pod sent you. Thanks for listening.
Well, man, parting words.
Uh, you know, just enjoy your stuff, and I hope everybody tunes in to more of what you got going on because thank you for having me. There's some other dentists that come in here, they're a lot better than I am, and so I would say, y'all tune in to Adam's stuff because he's got it going on.
Well, I'll finish with the accolade on you. You're very real, very genuine. You've got your mind grounded in the science, and I mean, I know you love the people as well. But it's an honor to have you on here because you're in the trenches. I'm a Marine, I'm a corporal. It's like the battlefield is won, the war is won on the front lines. I mean, I think you're out there fighting it every day. I think you also carry like a very interesting perspective with your family name, the Harings, the Misches. I think you've got a lot of insight into the past, and that makes you more brilliant looking into the future. So, I just want to keep on chatting with you and bouncing ideas off you. I think we've got a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we got a lot we can do for each other, a lot we can do for this profession. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you, Harry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam.
All right. Everybody, you remember to stay, what do I say? Rock hard, water tight, get your head straight. Cause if you're going to go all in, if you're going to go all in for, you got to go all in. So with that,
That's right.
thanks, Harry, for being here, and have
Thanks.
a great weekend.
Enjoy it. You too. Thanks, bye.
Hey, if today's conversation resonated with you and you're looking to sharpen not just your technique, but your judgment, your discipline, and your long-term vision, then this is exactly why we built the Atlantic Implant Institute. This is not just some weekend course or module. This is not just some highlight reel. This is not just some collection of disconnected modules. This is the core continuum for education and full arch workflow. It begins with Module 1, Core Bootcamp Fundamentals, where we establish surgical foundations, diagnostic discipline, and repeatable decision-making under real-world pressure. And then it continues with Module 2, Advanced Prosthetics and Full Digital Workflow, where occlusion, vertical dimension, aesthetics, condyles, and execution all converge. And then we have Module 3, which tackles remote anchorage, pterygoids, zygomatics, complex anatomy, taught through biomechanics, planning for predictable outcomes. And after the continuum, we have modules in FP1, fixed immediate load, and also business, how to 5, 10, 20. This is business leadership and operational strategy so that you can build surgically what actually works in practical business. If you're ready to go into full arch dentistry with intention, structure, accountability, and purpose, you can learn more at theatlanticImplantInstitute.com.